Hey guys, Ricky Howard here with the Government Sales Momentum Podcast. Thank you for tuning in this week. We have got a great show. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Woman-Owned Small Business certification. And before I get into that, just wanted to let you know we have some great stuff coming up. We have some great interviews scheduled to bring to you, and we're going to be restructuring our podcast, our website, everything. We have some big plans in the works, all to deliver a better product for you to help small businesses learn how to sell products and services to the U.S. government. So we're going to be a little bit more focused. We have a direction that we want to take this into, and I think you're going to really enjoy that. But getting on to our topic of today. So we are going to talk about the Woman-Owned Small Business certification. Now, there are different certifications that you can get, and they're referred to often as set-asides that your small business could be considered as when you're selling to the government. So big picture, right? The government requires federal spending to set a certain amount of their contracts aside for small businesses. It's usually 23%. A lot of them go higher than that. If you look at the agency breakouts, you could see, and the last one I saw was for 21. I'm not sure the 22 numbers came out yet, but you could see each year how they do. For instance, I want to say the Department of Defense really did well, getting near over 30% in 2021, but that was just for small business in general. So you have the set aside, the small business set aside, so a certain percentage of contracts that will go to small businesses. But within that, you have subcategories, right? So you could be a woman-owned small business. You could be a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, 8A, HubZone. Now, there's lots of different things that you can click when you register your small business in sam.gov. You could say that you're a minority-owned business or veteran-owned small business or woman-owned small business. There are certain things you can do, but to really be considered, and we're talking about woman-owned small business here. So if you see a RFP, request for proposal, or an RFQ, and it is set aside for WOSB, or maybe it's an RFI and they're just asking, it's marketing right from the government acquisitions team saying, hey, we're trying to see if there are enough woman-owned small businesses that can answer this call, that could put in a proposal and legitimately solve our problem set, deliver the product or service they're looking for. To be considered woman-owned small business, it goes beyond just checking, hey, we're a woman-owned small business. Now, you used to be able to do that in sam.gov, and that was fine, right? And so this is good if you are a woman-owned small business. If you registered like 5 years ago and you registered as WOSB, you are no longer considered a WOSB. So there is actually a certification process that you have to go through now to be considered a woman-owned small business. And it is not it's not something you're going to do in an hour. There is, I've walked through this process with clients in the past, and right now it could take some time. They're going to be going through your business registrations. They're going to be going through your finances. They're going to be going through a lot of documents that you're going to have to find, and it is not a quick procedure. And then that's just getting the application done. Once you finally get everything that you need to get that application done and submitted, then it could be even another 6 months before they get back to you. So again, the timelines are always going to change depending on when you are listening to this, but just going to, for instance, the SBA website. So if you go to the Google machine and type in SBA, woman-owned small business, you're going to find your way to their woman-owned small business program. And it'll go through the benefits and, improvements to, the new certification process. So again, if you originally registered as a WOSB, you now have to go through this certification process if you want to be considered when you are submitting a proposal for something that's been set aside for WOSB. Now, it will go through the eligibility requirements, and just reading through this. So if you're, a woman-owned small business, or maybe you're a married couple wondering if, hey, can we qualify for a woman-owned small business? So first is you have to meet the SBA size standards for your particular area, right? So if you're in, cybersecurity, or if you're selling office supplies, you're going to have to go and take a look at your NAICS code and then look at the small business size standards per NAICS code. And usually those are broken down by either how many employees you have or how much revenue you're bringing in each year, right? So, and typically we're talking, for something like software, I want to say it's upwards of $20-30 million a year. You'd have to be you'd have to exceed that to not be considered a small business anymore. In some cases, it's employees. If you have under 500 employees, you'd be considered a small business, but that's going to change. The number, whether it's a number of employees or a dollar amount, those numbers change depending on what your NAICS code is, what your specialty is, what your business does. So you want to make sure that first you qualify as a small business. Then the next step here in the SBA checklist is that you need to be at least 51% owned and controlled by a woman who is a U.S. citizen. So that's whether you're a married couple or whether you have multiple owners, it has to be at least 51% owned by a woman who is a U.S. citizen. And next is a woman has to manage the day-to-day operations and also make long-term decisions in regards to the company. So, and I can tell you, just having gone through the application process, there's going to be a lot of questions that talk about, who's in charge? Do you have a parent company that owns your business? Do you have a board of directors? Do you have, what personnel are in your business? And these are things you're not just going to be able to pencil whip that, well, a lot of cases, they're looking for official documents that you are going to submit with this. Now, and again, this is June 2022, as I'm recording this. Now, there's also, and I'm not talking about this in this podcast, but an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business certification. And that one's going to have requirements, that have to do with your net worth, your adjusted income. And then there'll be some similarities about, again, kind of similar to what you would need to qualify as a WOSB. So, but you can read through all of that on the website. It's something good to go through because I have encountered a few companies that thought they were good to go with the WOSB certification, only to realize that they did it so long ago that now they have to actually go through this kind of arduous certification process. Now, is it worth it? Is it worth it for your company to get that certification? Well, I would say yes, right? But knowing what it means. Okay. So typically, right, and I can speak from my experience as an acquisitions officer, I've never hired a company because they had a particular set aside. So I never hired a company because they were a service disabled, veteran-owned small business, or a woman-owned small business, or a small business. What I cared about was, can this company actually solve the problem that I'm trying to solve, right? So if I need to, hire 30 people to provide cybersecurity services within my squadron over the next 3 years, well, I have a service contract that I need, and I need to hire a company that can meet that requirement. Or if I need, to develop a technology, maybe make some improvements on a technology, you name what it is, I need a company that can actually make those improvements and has a track record of doing so, or maybe has a new solution that can solve my problem set. That's what I care about, right? But the cherry on top is if you have one of these certifications. So what you can use this for is influence, right? So maybe you're in an industry, and look, most companies aren't unicorns. Most companies aren't the only company that can do a certain thing. So if you are, and I'm going to stick with cybersecurity since I started with it, which is a huge area, right? You get a lot of competition, a lot of different companies doing different things, right? And let's say that, one of your specialties is vulnerability testing, and an RFI goes out and, hey, we need to do something involving cybersecurity and vulnerability testing. You can reply back to that RFI and say, hey, look, we meet all of the parameters, but we're also a woman-owned small business. And we know there are other women-owned small businesses that can meet this requirement, more than just us. And we recommend that you set this aside for a WOSB. What that does is eliminates all of your competition. So if you've convinced the program manager, the contracting team to set this aside for your set aside, you've just now gained the competitive advantage, right? Because they know who you are, because you responded to the RFI. You got them to set this aside for your particular set aside, and now you're not going to be competing with every other company out there, right? Just those that fit within the WOSB. So again, that's just something to think about, something to consider. you're probably not going to get hired because you have a certification, but you can eliminate a lot of the competition and increase your odds of winning because you have it. And of course, we'll cover different set-asides in other podcasts, but just wanted to get into that today. If you have any questions, go to richardchoward.com. You can send us any of your questions there. If you have a topic that you'd like us to cover in one of these podcasts, we'd love to do that for you. Thanks for tuning in and have a great week.